there, Janae with Palin Projects here, and in this video I'm going to be pickling some cucumbers. I know I haven't posted a video in a couple of weeks. It's just been super crazy around here. We've been harvesting a whole bunch, canning and haying and doing a whole bunch of stuff. So I figured I would share with you guys our tried and true pickling recipe. So the other night I had Justin help me prep cucumbers, or what was left of the cucumbers, so that's what's here. We did make some cucumber chips for the pickles, and I pickled whole cucumbers the other day, and I did a jar of chips as well. So this is the second round, so this will be the third round of pickling I've done. I pickled my pepperoncinis, I did some banana peppers, and first round of cucumbers. We also pressure canned some beans as well. But back to the pickles. We prepped about 15 pounds of, between both of these cannings, we detopped the whole pickles, and then we did the, what was remaining, we did the pickle chips, or the cucumber chips. So kind of walking you through my process. Right there is our water bath canner. It's heating up currently, so I just filled it with a bunch of water. I put a splash of vinegar in it, and all the vinegar does is it's completely cosmetic. It's so that the jars don't cloud up, and so just a splash of vinegar in that, and it's on the stove heating up. I can kind of hear it. The other thing that I have out already is my jars. So my jars are sitting there. They're pre-washed, but I'm going to sterilize them again, and all I do to sterilize them is I dip them in the boiling water just to make sure that they're nice and clean. After that, I prepped the garlic because I love garlic in my my pickles. You don't have to put it if you don't want to. But that's one thing that I enjoy putting in my pickles. So I prepped the garlic. It's honestly something that I don't necessarily like to do. The garlic gets my hands kind of sticky, and I don't particularly like that. But the next thing that I'm going to start with you guys is the brine. So you do have to boil the brine. The brine takes 4 quarts. So this will do, I believe this does like 2-ish quarts, the brine. So it's about a half a pound of cucumbers. So it's like 5 or 6 cucumbers. The brine is 2 1/4 cups of water, 3/4 cups of vinegar. I'm doing the white distilled vinegar, and a tablespoon of pickling salt. So I will, 7 of the big jars, I had to do 4, so I'll do that again. So I'll times this recipe by 4, so whatever that comes out to be is what I'll do. It does say 1 clove of garlic per jar. I put like 2 or 3, again, because I like to ward off vampires apparently, and I love garlic. It does say you can put dried hot red peppers if you want, kind of make a spicy dill. I did with a couple of my first batches. I went out into my spicy pepper patch, picked a couple habaneros, a couple jalapenos, and tried a couple different varieties with those. And then it says either 4 heads of fresh dill or 2 tablespoons of dill seed. Honestly, this is another thing where I don't think that you can overdo the dill. I kind of mound the tablespoons and kind of throw them in. It is what it is. But so to prep the brine, I'll do the water, vinegar, and the pickling salt. I'll bring that to a simmer. Not quite a roaring boil, but a simmer so everything combines. And then I will stuff the jars after I've dipped them. I'll stuff the jars with the pickle chips, throw the garlic in, throw the dill in, and then while that's all processing, or while I'm doing that, I'll also have a small pot on the stove warming up the lids, because you have to preheat the lids in order for them to seal correctly. So let's do the brine and I'm gonna wash the pickle chips as well. They've been sitting in these bowls. I did pre-wash the cucumbers before we cut them, but you know, handling them and everything, I just want to make sure that they are nice and clean. So I'll pre-wash them. I actually have my sink full of cold water already, so I'll just dump them in there and just let them sit before I stuff the jars with them. So let's get after it. Here I'm going to get a pot holder and see, we're not quite boiling yet with this. I can kind of hear it, so it's getting close. Turn you guys just a little bit. In this big pot here, I'm gonna start our brine, and then in this little pot, I'm gonna start the water. So I'm gonna fill this up with water real fast. It's not full of water, just enough to cover the lids. So that's gonna sit back there on that burner. There we go. And then I'm gonna get, ooh, reach across you guys, sorry. And get my brine going. Now I'm gonna get my brine going. I have my pot, I have my vinegar next to the water, and I have my pickling, my canning salt as well. So let's get after it. Brine is warming up, heating up. I wanted to say, you know, it's always a good thing to try to overestimate. You don't want to be like halfway through your jars, filling your jars, and realize that you need more brine. Terrible feeling, and it slows the process down so much. So try and overestimate the amount of brine that you need for your jars in order to fill your canner. The other thing is my canner, my water bath can hold 7 jars. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to make sure that I put 8 lids in to warm up. It's just kind of a, you can put 7 in, but it's just one of those things where, again, you don't want to be heating up an extra one if it falls on the floor, if you miscount, something to that effect. So just throw an extra one in to heat up. You can always pull it out afterwards and it'll cool down and you can reuse it, so it's not like you're wasting it. It does appear that my water is boiling in here now though, and so what I'm going to do now is sterilize my 7 jars. My fan kicked on because it's getting hot in here. Now, so I've sanitized the jars. My brine is on. It's just starting to bubble at the bottom. My lids need to be turned down a little bit. They're warming up. My jars are sanitized. Now I need to put the rest of my seasonings in the jars. It says to put it after you pack, but I like to put the dill seed, and I'm using dill seed today. I don't have any fresh dill. But I like to put the dill seed and the garlic at the bottom just to make sure that it's, I did the top on the big ones. I poured it over the top, and I didn't like how it like settled, and yeah. So I'm gonna put it on the bottom. That way the dill seed can get fully engulfed in the brine, and we'll go from there. But let's start packing our jars because everything's about ready. You want to leave about a 1-inch headspace, and what I mean by that is I usually go off of like the rim of the jar, so I try and keep my items in the jar below the rim of the jar. So I do, you might have noticed, I pack my cucumbers in. I tend to do that with all of my vegetables. You don't have to, but I will show you the difference in a second between a tightly packed jar and one that you just kind of put in. There is a difference. I prefer the tightly packed. When you're also packing the jars, you want to try and avoid touching the rim. I have a trick though, because you probably saw me touch the rim. I put a little bit of vinegar on a paper towel and I wipe the rim off before I put the lids on. Right now these jars are ready for brine. That's the stage that they're at. But after I get the brine in all the jars, I'll wipe the rim of the jar and then I'll put the lid on and put the ring on. But yeah, let me show you the difference between a tightly packed jar and not. Here are the pepperoncinis that I pickled. This one is fairly tightly packed, as tight as I could get them in. This one was less. So see the space at the bottom? It's less on this one than it is on this one. It's not a big deal, it's just aesthetics basically. One thing that I wanted to note, I mentioned that we did can some beans. The beans had to be pressure canned, so we didn't water bath them. We pressure canned the beans, and I didn't want that to be confused with the pickling. Everything that I've pickled has been water bathed, and the beans, all we put with the beans is water, hot water, and salt, so canning salt. And those had to be pressure canned to avoid disease, basically. The other thing that I wanted to note is there's a lot of canning utensils out there. All of my stuff is handed down, so I don't necessarily have a lot of it. After we get the brine in the jars, I'm going to be using a butter knife to go around the edges and just make sure all the air bubbles are out. There's actually a tool that has a magnet on the end for the lids as well. It's a handy tool. I don't have one at this time. Hopefully in the near future I'll get one. There's also funnels that fit the jars really nicely so that you're not touching the tops of the jars, because the oils on your hands can prevent a seal for the lids. Don't have that right now. And then there's also a jar grabber. There's a couple different names for it, but I also don't have one of those. So you'll see me using a variety of different things, a lot of pot holders, a lot of tongs, and stuff like that. So I just don't have a lot of the tools, and I wanted to still show you guys that you still can if you don't have the tools. So all I basically have is my water bath bucket and the little crate that you set the jars in there, and then you lower it into the water and you can pick them out of the water. So that's basically all I have, and I still can pickle and can most items. I do have a pressure canner of my own. I have not used that pressure canner. The beans I pressure canned somewhere else, and they have a tried and true pressure canner. So I have just pickled at my house so far. So, but it looks like the brine is almost ready, the lids are warmed up, and my pot of water is back to boiling. So let's fill all of the jars with the brine. Last thing that I wanted to note, you'll see the cucumber chips on the towel around. If anything fell onto the towels that I have laid out, I didn't pick it up. I'll either feed that to our dogs or our chickens, or eat it myself. I'll just wash it off and eat it myself. The only reason that I didn't pick them up and put them back in is just to try and keep everything sanitized and as clean as possible. It's really the only reason. Here's what the top looks like. You can see there's about an inch of air from the pickles, or the cucumbers, because they're not pickles yet, but the pickles to the top of the jar. And now it's time for the lids. So I got the lids on. I tightened the ring on the lid, just hand tight. I didn't like wrench it down, just tight enough so that it was snug basically. And then I evenly put the jars in the water bath, lowered them in so that there was about 1 inch to 2 inches of water above the top of the jars. And then I'm gonna wait for this to come back up to a roaring boil and set the timer for 15 minutes after it started boiling. That's when my timer is gonna start. Once the 15 minutes is up, I will bring the jars up and place them on my tea towels on the counter and wait for them to seal and be preserved. So if, how you see if your jar has sealed is if you press on here and you hear like a little popping. This one's sealed, so it's not going to do it, but it'll be like a, I don't know, like a doink, 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 doink. Those of you that can are going to laugh at that noise, but it just pops. You can just push it down and it'll pop. That just means that it didn't seal. You can still eat it. It's not a big deal. Put it in your fridge for a couple of weeks and you can still eat it. So just won't be preserved for into the winter, but it's exciting. I will show you the process of pulling the jars out, but I hope you enjoyed watching and we'll see you in the next project. Thanks guys, bye.